Hello and welcome to the Mighty Oaks Show. Glad to have you with us today. My name is Jeremy Stalnecker. I'm the Executive Director of the Mighty Oaks Foundation and looking forward to a great show today with a great guest. And as we get started, I'll remind you, as I always do, and I'm sure you're always paying attention, but I want to remind you again. If you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Some of you are listening on a podcast, or maybe you're listening on our partner station at Mojo 50. If you're listening there, take some time later on to jump over to YouTube. You can look us up, the Mighty Oaks Show, and we'd love to have you subscribe, hit the notification bell. That lets you know when new shows, new episodes come online, and then share out the content, and that helps us, and I think that helps others as well. It's our goal every time we do this show and every time we put content out there to provide resources and helps to you and to those that you care about, and I trust that this will be a useful help and resource as you go through your life. And looking forward to our time together today. Today, our special guest is Jason Geis, and Jason is coming to us remotely today. Jason served 21 years in the United States Army. And I was just telling him we're an equal opportunity nonprofit, so even those who served in the Army have a place at Mighty Oaks, and we're thankful for that. Jason is involved in a bunch of stuff related to veterans and just the veteran world and serving others, but also, and this is how we connected through the Mighty Oaks Foundation, serves as a team leader for Mighty Oaks and is very involved in the work that we do. So Jason, glad to have you. Thanks for making time. I know you took some time out of some training to join us, and looking forward to our conversation.
Really appreciate you having me on, Jeremy.
Yes, sir. Why don't we start at the beginning? Talk about kind of where you were raised and how you were raised. I'm always interested in what leads young people into military service. So let's start there, and then talk a little bit about your time in the Army, and then we'll talk about transitioning out. But where were you raised? Where'd you come from? What was it that caused you to say, I should serve the United States Army?
So I had a great upbringing in southern Indiana, a little town called Seymour, very small population, south of Indianapolis, north of Louisville, Kentucky. Primarily farming, corn type community, and just had a great upbringing. My parents were together through all of my childhood, and just very blessed. And went to college, and probably wasn't really ready to go to college. Everyone else was doing it, so I did it. And about between my sophomore and junior year, I realized that it just wasn't a thing for me. And I said, what are my other opportunities? And one of those was military service. So I went and checked it out, and actually took the ASVAB, and I actually enlisted and told my parents after the fact.
Yeah,
so it was
sure.
quite a
Sure.
it was quite a wow to my parents. But they were a little concerned. Obviously, I didn't do well at college, and so it's like, oh, now you're going to take on being in the military.
Right.
And it was absolutely the very best decision, one of the best decisions I made in my life.
What did you do in the Army? You're in the Army for 21 years, so probably did a lot of things. Yeah. But where did you start?
I
did.
What did your
career look like?
So first duty station was Fort Polk, Louisiana. And the Army's got all those great hot spots in the United States.
It's definitely a garden spot for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. I was a medic in the Army, and served most of my time in light infantry airborne units like the 82nd, 101st, 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment, things like that. Did a stint in Korea, did a year in South Korea, 5 years at Fort Campbell in the 101st Airborne Division. And then off to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, 25th Infantry Division, and then 82nd Airborne Division after that. Just kind of worked my way through and ended up at Fort Hood between my 19th and 21st year, and had several deployments. And it was interesting because not only did I have combat deployments, I also had peacekeeping and humanitarian deployments in Central America, as well as I was in Kosovo when September 11th happened with the 101st. Wow. So, it was a very diverse background in Army field medicine, but I loved every single minute of it.
Yeah. Where were your combat deployments?
I was in Iraq for 15 months early in the war. And we were actually the bridging infantry brigade task force that was the handoff between 1st Infantry Division and 4th ID in that very first handover between OIF-1 and OIF-2. So it was an interesting time. I was northwest of Fallujah, Sunni Triangle, and we replaced the 173rd Airborne Combat Team out of Italy. So it was an interesting time, but that was my main stint in post 9/11 was that 15-month tour in Iraq, and everything else was just little things, leader recons in Afghanistan and some Kuwait type missions, reconning for units going over there to be medically validated. So I just really count the Iraq deployment as my primary deployment to combat for post 9/11.
A lot of folks, and you know this, you work with us, but a lot of the men and women who transition out of the military, particularly if they have combat deployments behind them, and a long deployment like that, that's an incredible amount of time. They tend to bring some things home that they then later on have to deal with, and they find that it's much more difficult to deal with those things out of uniform than in uniform. Did you have challenges, and I'm sure that you did, that you'd be willing to share with us as you transitioned out of the military and try to figure out what the next steps were for you?
Yeah, you know, you're exactly right when you say you kind of compartmentalize a lot of things that you experience, and it isn't until you make that transition that a lot of those boxes start opening up, and you don't have the tools in your toolbox to be able to deal with those. And a lot of times we reach for a lot of different things, or we go down the VA route and medication. And the sad thing is we don't look to our faith and our belief in Christ to kind of be the starting point. A lot of times it's one of the last choices that we make, unfortunately. But it was the same for me. I started having a lot of anger issues. It was affecting my family a lot, and drove a big wedge between my stepdaughter and my wife. And I told myself and my wife that I was going to do whatever it took to get better and to make things better with all these things that were opening up that I wasn't ready to deal with from my time downrange.
What was your relationship with God like while you were in the military? Were you a believer in the military, and as you transitioned out, or did that happen later?
I was a believer when I was in the military, but I wasn't an active participating believer. I was a Christian, but I wasn't really in a walk with Christ. It wasn't till towards the end of my career that I was a little bit more on that right track, and it definitely was after coming to Mighty Oaks when I was at my lowest point that I was able to actually start a walk with Christ that actually has helped change my life and my family's life.
One of the challenges so often is getting folks who need help to come to the point where they say, like you just said, you said this to your wife, I'm going to do whatever I have to figure this out, to get better. That is, in my estimation, as we've done this over and over again, that's the biggest challenge, is getting someone to come to that point. Folks will often ask, what do you do during a week at Mighty Oaks? You have these programs, and men and women come through, and so much happens in their lives. What is it that you guys do? And really what we do is try to back people into a corner where they have that moment where they'll say that to themselves. They'll say, I need to do something different. I need to change the direction that I'm going. And often people don't do that until they find themselves in one of our programs or find themselves at that low point. What was the catalyst that caused you to say that to your wife? What was it that caused you to say, I need to do something different, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do?
I think it was an incident where my little daughter at the time, she was probably maybe 3 years old. She had just done something not out of the ordinary for a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely, like, my response to what happened was just so wrong and so over the top that it actually caused my little daughter's lower lip to start quivering. And it just absolutely, like, destroyed my heart that I did that to my little girl. And my wife was in tears, and nobody could understand why I reacted the way that I did to something that was just so, like, normal for a 3-year-old. It was just this overwhelming response to a simple stimulus.
Yeah.
And it was like that was a kind of a defining moment of, I have a really big problem and I've got to figure out how to solve it, or I'm going to destroy my entire family and myself if this continues to go down that road.
What did that road look like for you? So you had that moment, made that decision, and thankfully you made it before, you did permanent damage. What happened after that?
Well, of course, I was already seeing the VA. They had already put me on some antidepressant that made me like a zombie, and I had to do that back and forth. And I think a lot of guys, maybe you do need an antidepressant. Maybe you don't need it long term, but I think you have to have a conversation with your provider,
Yeah.
and what's the exit strategy, and is it the right medication for you? Because everybody might need something different. So one was continuing that fight to make sure that I was only taking medication that I absolutely needed to be on the right track, and that it was the right medication for me. And then in addition to that, I sought counseling. Unfortunately, I didn't seek biblical counseling, which that's where I should have gone. But there was some secular counseling, and it all just kind of fizzled because it wasn't based in Bible, and it wasn't based in Christ. And so when it's secular counseling, at a certain point, you just get to this place where it's not going to benefit you anymore. And so I bounced around a little bit from counselor to counselor. And then that's when I came across Mighty Oaks, and actually my nanny came across Mighty Oaks, and we both kind of talked about it at the same time. And next thing you know, I was reaching out and applying to come to Mighty Oaks. At the time, it was called the Fight Club. Now it's Men's Legacy.
That's awesome. So you attended the program, and what was it about that time that kind of helped you turn a corner? I mean, there are a lot of things that happen during a week like that. It's always funny to me. You've had these conversations too, but it's always funny to me what does cause someone to make a decision, what doesn't. We always think it's going to be this thing, but it's that thing. But what was the thing that caused you to kind of turn a corner and start to look at the world a little bit different?
It was a kind of a really tough week for me, because I think I went there with a lot of excuses and a lot of nobody knows what I'm going through kind of a thing. And what I realized is, that the whole concept of looking at the person in the mirror and realizing that you can sometimes be a big part of your own problem. And what I realized that week through a great team leader that I had in Justin is that I had some pride and ego problems, and I had some serious transition problems from being a sergeant major in the Army to being a stepdad, a husband, and just an employee for a company that I worked for as I transitioned. And what I also realized is I wasn't in control of really anything but myself. And that it was just an extremely difficult week of realization for me, but it's definitely a week that's changed the trajectory of my life forever.
Since then, what year was that?
That was 2017.
Okay, 2017. So since that time, you become team leader in our organization, working with veterans and active duty service members who are coming through Mighty Oaks. But beyond that, the list of veterans organizations and causes that you're involved in is it's a long list. You're involved in a lot of stuff. Talk about some of the other things that you're involved in.
Well, what actually led me to meeting my wife, Jamie, was while I was on active duty at Fort Irwin in that great high desert of California.
You hit all the high spots. Man,
I did. The Army management just loved putting me in just these great, awesome places. But the people I met, the relationship building was awesome. But I got involved in a brand new non-for-profit that's out of Kern County and for post 9/11 veterans for Kern County called Wounded Heroes Fund. And it's just an organization where our own community takes care of transitioning service connected disabled post 9/11 veterans. And through that organization, while I was on active duty the last 4 or 5 years, I served on the board of directors, and I met my wife through my mother-in-law, who was a volunteer. And that's really what led me to getting married to my wife, Jamie, from Bakersfield, and then ending up living here in Bakersfield, which then led to getting involved in other opportunities to serve veterans. And why I left Wounded Heroes Fund after 10 years was to establish an organization called Portrait of a Warrior Gallery, Kern County, which honors the 27 men who have given their life since 9/11 from my community.
Wow.
And we honor them by having a portrait painted of them, not only in their service uniform, but also other things that were important to them and their family. And our motto is never forgotten, always remembered. And, Mighty Oaks did a really nice Rudis sword that we have when we walk in the front door. It's sitting on the desk. And I really appreciate that you guys got behind what we're doing. And our goal is to establish a gallery like that in every county in the state of California. And that's a long-term goal.
Yeah.
And we have 20 of our 27 portraits complete now, and it's free and it's self-sustaining financially, and it's open to the public for our community. And it's just been a really great place to bring our Gold Star family members and keep them in connection with our community.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where do people find out and donate, support, get behind what you're doing?
It's just a matter of going on the internet and typing in Portrait of a Warrior Gallery, Kern County. There's a Facebook page, and we have a new website that's being developed. It's going to be kern-warriors.org, and it is a 501c3. And our goal, and I know we've already got a guy that's going to establish this same gallery in San Diego. And he was one of the artists that was involved in the gallery here in Kern County. And we actually have an export package that we're going to be delivering to each county's board of supervisors. So they're going to have everything they need to establish what they want to do for their community. But we feel like being able to see someone's picture helps keep their memory alive a lot better than a name on a wall or a name on a plaque, somewhere hanging in a building. So that's been really good. It's just a great organization. My wife's super involved in it. Our community is 100% behind it. We've had over $600,000 in donations. And like I said, the way that we designed it with annual recurring sponsorships, it's self-sustaining financially. And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to interrupt you. I'll interrupt you later. Go ahead.
Okay. There's some other things that I've kind of gotten involved in. And one thing that I want to mention to everybody is, one thing we do talk about at Mighty Oaks is margin. And even though it seems like I'm involved in a lot of these organizations, what I've really done is help people that had a good idea and help them take that idea into action. And of course, they always ask me to be on their board, and I just tell them, hey, I'd just like to help you get it going because I think it's going to make a difference in our community. And so it seems like it's more than what it really is. But there's a lady in our community that just started a not-for-profit called Cole's Comrades. And basically what that does is it helps family members who have lost a service member through suicide or something after their service connect to an organization called Tragedy Assistance Programs for Survivors, or TAPS. And since this mother of a fallen service member who died after his service, she's connected over 40 people across the United States to assistance that they didn't know that was available to them and their family. Wow. And it's also a great way for discipleship too, because she added that X identifier so she could have have Bible verses and things like that on her website. And that's just been an outstanding opportunity for discipleship and bringing people together. And then another organization that we started up, it's actually in Shandon, California, over near San Miguel, is called Operation Hunt for Heroes. And what we do there is we've opened it up to all areas of service. And if you have a service-connected disability, we bring you out to Bitterwater Outfitters, and we take you on a pig or a ram hunt, and it's 100% funded. And if you've never hunted before, we take you to the range and we help you, maybe learn something new to get you outside and get you active again and not sitting around at the house isolating yourself. And we've had great success with that. We have a list of people applying from all over the state of California. We actually have a 71-year-old Vietnam single amputee, leg amputee, getting ready to come through as well. So that's been another great organization. And then a lot of people have heard of Honor Flight, and we have a very active Honor Flight here in Kern County. And I'm getting ready to take my 10th flight.
Wow.
We have 100 Vietnam veterans we're taking back to the Vietnam Wall, April 7th, 8th, and 9th. And, our community has funded over 1,500 veterans from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam to take back to DC in just a very short period of time. And then there's a couple other ones. Rise Up Recovery is a new one, and there's going to be a veteran component to that, which is going to help underinsured and uninsured veterans get counseling and treatment, and even things like ketamine treatment, which can help with post-traumatic stress as well. And so we just have a great community here in Kern County. It's not the biggest town in California, but I think it's in the top 10. But I've never seen a community that is doing more for its veterans and having people step up and create organizations that serve our fellow veterans within our own community and take care of each other.
Man, that's incredible work. There's a lot of questions, but I'll ask two. The first one is this. Why is it important? I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Why is it important that we remember those who have served our country and have been killed in combat? Obviously, a lot of money, a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of focus is going into that. To have a museum like that in every county in California is what an amazing goal. Why is it important that we remember? And I think a lot of people miss this.
I think what's important is if we're connected to the person that was killed, of course we remember that person. But what we don't realize is all around us are Gold Star family members who have lost a son or daughter, a husband, a wife, a mom or dad, an uncle or an aunt. And we don't know sometimes in our own community who those people are. And by doing something like this, we're educating our children. We're showing them the true meaning of sacrifice and what freedom in our country is all about, and that it doesn't just come for free, and that they could be in our gallery, for example, talking to the mother of one of our fallen soldiers, and how does that impact that family, and what can we do as a community to wrap our arms around them and show them, the same love that Jesus shows us, and to make sure that they understand that we just can never thank them enough for the sacrifices that their loved ones have made by giving their life for our freedom.
What you talk to, I'm sure, a lot of Gold Star families, moms and dads, probably brothers and sisters who have lost family members. What's a common theme? What do they want people to know about their family member, their loved one who gave their life for freedom?
I think that, of course, they want people to know that they served our country in whatever service that they were in. But I think even more important is they want people to know what kind of personality that they had. They want people to know, that they were a Christian. They want people to know that they love to play soccer or basketball, or what impact that they were making in our community, or what impact they had already made in our community. And what a great loss that we have that they're not here to continue on those things that they could have done in the future. And I just think that just them being able to talk about their son or daughter or whatever, however that fallen service member relates to them, I think that provides comfort and healing to them. And it also preserves and keeps the memory of that fallen service member alive in our community.
I think it's on the other, kind of side of this equation, I think it's also really important not just to support those who have lost a family member, but for Americans to understand the sacrifice that is made for the freedom that we enjoy. I think we're often so disconnected from what it actually takes to purchase and preserve the freedoms that we have to do things, that we then take it for granted because we just don't fully understand it. And seeing a picture of a young person, maybe not a young person, I don't know, someone who has served and has paid that price it's so important. I know for my kids, I take them every opportunity I have to see, memorials and statues and pictures of those who have fought to preserve our freedom, because it's just that important to understand that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Over 1,067,000 Americans have given their life for our freedom since our country was founded. And we have 1.8 million veterans in California. And just in my county alone, we have 45,000 veterans. So it's just, there's just so much to be learned. I totally agree that people absolutely take for granted what we have and how great our country is. And it's through all that sacrifice.
Yeah. That's what makes, that type of work so important. We can't let people forget. Okay, so my second question, so I just asked 4 questions after saying I'd ask one, and let me ask my second one, which is actually my 5th. Why is service to service members so important to you, someone who served for 21 years as an active duty soldier? This is a theme again and again and again that you and I kind of live in this world. We see this, but why is it so important for those who have served to continue serving, in ways similar to the way that you're serving?
Well, I mean, from a biblical perspective, it's servant leadership, right? I mean, God calls us to take care of one another, but from a service member's perspective, I think as long as a lot of us have served, it's in our DNA. It's almost like our DNA was changed, that we want to feel a part of those who serve, those who are serving, or those who have served. And by saying, what can I do to help? And what I see is, if all of us did a little bit, then everyone wouldn't have to do that much and everyone would be taken care of. But we're just not quite there yet. And so I think it's just who I think it's who I am. And I know that it makes a difference for people, and it makes me still feel like I'm serving as I was serving in the military when I was.
I think for a lot of service members too, it's a big part of their healing and their ability to move forward is kind of looking away from their own situation and their own struggles and finding others who are struggling and working to help them.
Agree, totally.
You've been doing this for a long time. So you've served for a long time. You've served others for a long time. When you have a struggling service member, and we try to make the point all the time that trauma and trials and difficulties are not reserved for those who have served in the military. And so, our audience would be people who have served, or know people who have served, or maybe just people who are interested, but they're people, and people struggle. As you have talked over the years to struggling people, I'm sure you've dealt with just about every situation that we could imagine. But when you sit across from someone who may say something like, I have no hope, I don't know what to do, I've ruined my relationships to the point that they're beyond repair, I don't know where to go from here, all these things that we hear. What is that piece of advice or that thing that you say to them that they just have to get a hold of, that you're urgent about, because if they'll get a hold of it, that things will change in their life? What do you tell them?
Well, I always tell them that there is good news, and I lead that back to, what Jesus endured for us and what Jesus has done for us, so that we can be saved for eternity. So one, it's a good opportunity for discipleship, but the other piece is that they need to know that there's hope. They need to know that people have been where they've been, and they can turn it around, and they can turn it around with the help of others who have been in their, maybe not their exact same situation, but what we find out is anybody that thinks that nobody can understand what I'm going through, the more that you hang around people that have experienced trauma, the more you always realize every time that I never thought I would hear that, and then you hear it,
Yeah.
or you hear something that's worse. So, and seeing that those people can turn things around and just get relationships back on track, just feel well about themselves and have hope. It's really about giving them hope and saying that really that you'll be there for them if they need you. But when you say that, you got to follow through. And
Right.
I think that's part of that fellowship that we're talking about amongst each other. And so really it's just laying out that there is a path to hope and there is a path to salvation and redemption from wherever they are in their path.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I'm sure we'll do it again, but man, so thankful for the work that you're doing, and look forward to continuing this conversation down the road.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. The outpost here at our church for Mighty Oaks is just great, and we're getting ready to graduate another 17 service members in Reboot. It's our second class, and so that's just around the corner. So we just love what we're doing here, and we have a lot of great people that are a part of it. It takes a team to make it happen.
That's right.
So thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be involved in this great organization we call Mighty Oaks Warrior Program. It's real honor, and it's very humbling to be able to be a part of it.
It's great, Jason. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it, and look forward to talking again. For those that are watching, go and check out all the good work that they're doing in Kern County. But if you have more questions about Mighty Oaks and the programs of Mighty Oaks, you can go to mightyoaksprograms.org. That's our website. A lot of things you can do there. You can learn about us. There's a place to apply to get into a program just like Jason did. We'd love to have anyone who has served or they're married to someone who's served, including those in the first responder community, would love to invite you to a program. Perhaps you'd like to support an organization like Mighty Oaks, you can do that there as well. And we're so grateful for our many supporters across the country. For those that are listening or watching, again, if you have not yet subscribed, please do that. Hit the notification bell, share this content out, and we look forward to bringing you more in the days ahead. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next time.